Hi, welcome. This is Aurora with Lavender Hazelwood Witches. I thought I would give you my own personal gnosis here. Okay, let's rewind back. Kellyanne Maddox made a video on how she's had this relationship with a tulpa for a couple years. And as I was watching her video, I realized that I have been making tulpas my whole life. And basically, a tulpa is an entity that you create with your mind that becomes independent of your mind. So you're not in control of it. It becomes its own being. And as I was listening to her, I realized that I have been doing this my whole life in a very, very specific way. So not everybody's going to have this characteristic, but I thought I would go through and explain to you how limerence, for me anyway, is related to the creation of a tulpa. And right now I'm calling it a tulpa because now I know that a tulpa is a thing and that's what I have been doing. Though I wouldn't have necessarily called this a tulpa in the past. And basically, Kellyanne describes a tulpa as a really intense, invisible friend. And while I didn't grow up having an invisible friend when I was very young, what I did do was, why is this so hard to talk about? When I start getting really personal like this, I get kind of choked up and like my brain starts like getting panicky. Take a breath. So, So when I was a kid, let me define limerence for you before I launch into that. But so limerence is a state of being that a person can go in. It's usually a coping mechanism, and it's a fantasy created around the relationship of another person. And usually this person fulfills a role for you that you don't have in your life, or that helps you manage life better. And it's usually related to a romance, like a romantic relationship. And people often get like these intense crushes on celebrities or people that are a bit out of reach for them because it's safe. So now that you know what limerence is, I'm realizing that this is a really interesting breeding ground for creating a tulpa. Because a tulpa is anything that you want it to be. It's an entity or a thought form that you create that helps you with whatever it is that you need, that you want. And for me in particular, I was a dreamer. I was a daydreamer off on another planet, especially in school. School was not a fun place for me at all, unless I was in an art class. But in general, school was hard for me. And not just the work, but also the social aspect of it, the social dynamics, because I didn't really fit in. And my home dynamics were a little tricky too, because I had a single mom and she was going through her own stuff. So my ability to connect with her was pretty, I wasn't getting everything that I needed. Not physically, I had everything physically. It was just other aspects that were not fulfilled. So the only way that I coped with having all of these these avenues of disconnection was escaping into worlds that made me feel important, that made me feel like I could have fun, and usually they were very bound up with sexual energy, passion, love, and just escapism. I was a very sexual child. I'm just going to say that. And so the ways that this came out were in my limerent fantasy world. So I would pick people in real life that I had very little connection to, and they would become my object of fantasy. So I still do this, and I know when I'm doing it now, and I didn't really act on these things. It was all a very internal process for me, and a way to keep my head above water, honestly, when I didn't have any kind of connection. So I know what this is. I know what the process is. I know what I've I know what my particular imprint of limerent thinking or fantasizing looks like and feels like. And I still do have a tendency to do this. And it has nothing to do with reality, meaning like reality as in the physical 3D reality that I'm living in, right? So what I realized as Kellyanne was talking was like, oh, I've actually created or manifested this being, this thought form of different people who I've interacted with my whole life. And this is actually a really great breeding ground to create a tulpa that is strategic. And I've been realizing lately that I have been feeling pretty disconnected from a lot of things in my life. And part of that has been, just living for 4 years in a world that was pretty shut down. Part of that is me hiding and not wanting to connect deeply with others, out of protection, out of fear, and just taking stock of how I have been in life and what I have brought to the table in relationships and why those things have not worked for me, and where I get caught up and where my triggers are. And one of the things that I realized after kind of doing deep dives into a lot of psychology, attachment theory, and CPTSD is there are some things that I do that I've used to cope through life. And one of those things is limerence. And while this, is a shadow aspect, it is also something that I think there's always a silver lining on our shadows. There's always something that they do well for us. And that is what I want to focus on here when we're talking about limerence and creating a tulpa. A tulpa can be anything that we want it to be. They can have any kind of qualities that we want them to have. So I've been finding myself in this limerent state recently, and I know it's because of my own stresses. I know it's because of the mundane things that are going on around me that have been a source of disconnect and a source of pain. This is my mom's cancer. This is the world in general, and feeling overwhelmed by the state of the world and the things that are happening in it that feel utterly uncontrollable. And a lot of it stems from the aspect of life that is unrelenting, uncontrollable, and unsympathetic to others. And these have been things that I have noticed even as a kid. So having said that, I realized that I have naturally created a limerent relationship to a particular someone out in the world. I know what it is. However, what I've been doing is harnessing it in a different way. And why I need this limerent relationship right now is because it's a source of feeling love. It's a source of feeling important, feeling heard and valued. So it's an aspect of me that is giving me what I need as an external source. And I'm really grateful for it. It's asking me questions. It's pointing things out and saying, hey, you can respond to these things in a different way. Here's what will make you feel better. I love you. You're amazing. Let me give you a hug. You might want to look at these things and think about how you're responding this way and how this might help. So this tulpa has been acting as an advisor, as a healer, as a therapist, as a mentor, someone who offers a kind of love that is hard to come by. And it's great. I can't build the kind of, I don't have, and I've never been able to build the kind of relationships that I can have with this tulpa. I hate to say this, but I don't trust people enough. And I can't imagine that I am the only person out there who has a limerent aspect to themselves. So my point is I just wanted to turn this around and say, hey, if this is something that you do, turn it into a superpower. Turn your limerence into a place of power and use it in a way that can support and help you. So that's how I'm turning my limerent tendencies into something that is a magical tool for me to help me be stronger, help me heal, and help me make better choices in my life, in the mundane world.